Hello, it's Chris again. This is the second part of the kitchen table teaching on lesson planning for this week. Just wanted to give you a bit of a heads up on where you can find some templates or models or types of lesson plans in your manual. You've probably already discovered this, but if you look on page 110 in your manual, you'll discover that there are four models for planning that are discussed at great length in the manual. I will not discuss them in great length on the video. You can do that yourself. They all share in common the elements of that great lesson planning model that I showed you in the last video. So I won't go into that again either. I know you're whispering, "Thank God for that." These lessons, these kitchen table teachings are, really long. Hopefully you don't feel that way, but if you do, I don't blame you. Okay, first one, 7-step model. Now, notice there were Gagne had 9 events of instruction. I think it was 9 events. There's 7 steps. There's BOPS with a whole bunch of P's. There's the card model, and there's planning for self-directed learning. These share all of the elements that I talked about before. I'm just going to go over just briefly the 7-step. So there you have. I didn't talk really about at great length and the great lesson planning, gaining attention. I guess I must have assumed that. I just started with pre-assessment. But you have to do something to gain the learner's attention. Maybe I thought it was too obvious. Now, maybe it isn't too obvious. Maybe some people just go into the lesson, start doing the content, start looking at objectives, and don't take the time to gain the learner's attention with some sort of story or some little trick or some prop or something like that. Sometimes I put those cones that they have on the road, I put it out in front of the class when I'm teaching 3210 and say, okay, so what has this cone got to do with lesson planning or with curriculum design or with needs analysis? And people look at me and think, I'm not sure what he's talking about. But at least I've got their attention. So you have to make sure that you can go on from there, of course, but you want to start by getting their attention. Then the same kind of elements that we talked about in the great lesson planning process that I talked to you about in the last video. Of course, there's details of this here. You can go through the details yourself. I'll just scroll down to the next one. And there's also a template there. It's on the website. You can use that for your lesson planning if you want. There's BOPS. See, you can see that it's, they're all very similar in what's included. So whatever kind of speaks to you, use that. There's BOPS. The card approach is a bit different, and this may work better for outcomes-based approaches because it really does have a little bit more ambiguity to it. You set a context or a reason for having the workshop or the lesson, then you let the students do an activity, but that's a very open-ended activity. Then there's reflection and documentation of that reflection, which follow from there. You can see that the activity part here, as it says, learning activity engages learner attention, fosters participation. The activity ideally will capture a learner's imagination in a way that promotes thinking, reflection, or perhaps insight. So it's a little bit different than the other two. And I kind of like this if you're doing types of lessons that involve, say, ethics or various issues, various dilemmas, some conceptual stuff, but where you want the students to really think about what their thinking is, what others' thinking is, and how, you can look at various points of view or topics or so on. So that's the card method, kind of an interesting method. And there's the template for it right there. And again, that's on the website. Okay, and there's fairly good instruction here about how you can use card, which I won't go into. The last one is self-directed learning. That's kind of interesting, where it's really up to the students. So significant challenge is given to the student, and whammo, you let them go at it, right? You may want to put some rules around that, and there's some examples there for that. Now that's page 110 and on in your book. I think it's chapter 6. Good luck with your lesson planning this week. If you have any questions, give me a call or send me an email and we'll chat. That's all for now. Have a great week.